for joining the section for today. So we are going to be talking about Azure Pricing Calculator and total cost of ownership in Microsoft Azure. So, but firstly, I'm going to start with Azure Pricing Calculator, and I'm going to be explaining Azure Pricing Calculator with different use cases. So the first use case I'm going to talk about is you can use Azure Pricing Calculator to plan your budget. You can use it to plan your budget. Plan your cloud budget. So if you plan your budget, it's very good because it can help you anticipate future expenses. So with Azure Pricing Calculator, you can plan your budget, and we are going to see some use cases of Azure Pricing Calculator. So now let me just paste this here. Let me reduce it. Yeah, let's see. I think I need to say plan your budget. So I'm just giving a use case. So let me just say use case. So one of the use cases, let's even be more, let's relate it well. Let's say a company now, or let's say YAF wants to deploy a web app in Azure. So they want to deploy a web app in Azure. So firstly, before they deploy it, they want to know how much it will cost. This is a use case. So YAF wants to deploy a web app in Azure, but before they deploy it, they want to know the cost. So this is one use case. So let's say, for instance, we have a website that we use in our church. Maybe we are hosting the website on, let's say, on our local server, but we don't want to host the website on our local server again. So the use cases, we want to plan our budget. We want to plan our budget. So one of the use case of pricing calculator is you can use pricing calculator to plan your budget. So let's look at the why now. So pricing calculator helps estimate monthly cost. So the first use case is we are talking about how we can use pricing calculator to plan our budget. And the use case is the Utah Life Fellowship want to deploy a web app in Azure. We all know that cost is very important because if you are coming up with any solution and you are maybe telling your stakeholders or your management, the first thing they want to find out is how much will it cost? Will we be saving money using this solution, or will be spending more money? So Azure Pricing Calculator helps you estimate the monthly cost. Let's take note of this word estimation. It only estimates. It doesn't give you the actual cost. Sometimes you can estimate that you are going to spend $200 per month, and at the end of the day, you may spend like less than that, or maybe slightly more than that. But at least it will give you an estimate of what you may likely spend. So that is one use case of Azure Pricing Calculator. So let's say, for instance, now, another use cases for Azure Pricing Calculator is, let's say, for instance, you want to estimate cost for a customer. Maybe a customer want to set up some resources in Microsoft Azure, and the customer wants to know the cost, like, okay, how much will I pay if I want to set up virtual machine? How much will I pay if I want to create storage account? How much will I pay if I want to deploy Azure Kubernetes? How much will I pay if I want to deploy Azure Container Instances? So the use case here now is use case. a solution architect needs to give a quote to a customer. Let's say a solution needs to give a quote to a customer. So the solution architect here now is me and you. So you want to estimate cost for a customer. Maybe a customer have already told you what they want. Okay, I want you to help me set up 5 virtual machines in the cloud. I want you to help me set up storage accounts. I want you to help me set up an environment where I want you to help me set up an environment where I can host my web servers, where I can host my applications. So the customer have already met you. So what you want to do is you want to estimate the cost for the customer. The use cases, a solution architect needs to give a quote to a customer. Now, maybe the customer wants to host their servers and network in Azure. So the customer want to host their network and servers in Azure. So this is a use case now. So why use Azure Pricing Calculator? So Azure Pricing Calculator now will help you generate a clear estimate of what the customer will spend. So that is one use cases. So we are looking at pricing calculator. So we talked about 2 use cases of Azure Pricing Calculator. The first is you can use it to plan your budget. And the example we gave was the Youth Alive Fellowship want to deploy a web app in Azure, but before they deploy the web app, they want to know the cost. Maybe the youth president, Pastor Steve, comes and say, okay, I want to know the cost that we are going to spend so that we can give the budget to the church Dickens board so that they can release the funds. Of course, he needs to know what he's asking for. So for you to be able to tell him the amount he will spend before deploying the resources, right now, you have not deployed the resources, but it's good. And that is one thing about cloud. You can predict the cost. You can predict what you will spend. So, so right now, it helps you to even anticipate, okay, this is what I will spend, this is what I'm not going to spend. So in this case, Pastor Steve now wants to know the amount he will spend. And if you want to actually calculate the amount you will spend for him, the best solution you can use is Azure Pricing Calculator. That is if he wants to deploy the solution in Microsoft Azure. Other cloud providers like AWS, Google Cloud, they have their own way they calculate pricing. But if you want to deploy resources in Microsoft Azure, you use Azure Pricing Calculator. So the next one is for a customer. So let's take, for instance, now you are a solution architect, which by God's grace, I know some of us are going to become solution architects. And maybe, for instance, because the work of a solution architect is a customer will come, tell you their business need, tell you their problems and the issues they are encountering in their environment, in their on-premise environment. Maybe as a solution architect now, you now tell them that, okay, how many servers do you have? They now tell you we have 5 servers, we have 3 file servers, we have 4 application servers, we have, let's say, maybe they now tell you they have some
Is am I the only one that cannot hear him? I don't know. Hello.
Same here. I can't even hear him too.
No, I guess it should be a general. Maybe his network also went off because I'm not hearing anything as
It's
well.
on hold. The speaker is on hold. It might be
Probably
from
the
his end.
network.
Okay, yes. Let's be patient then.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know I was on hold. Let me reshare my screen. So can we all still hear me? Can you let me know where you lost me so I can just go back?
You were about.
You were talking about
Okay, go ahead. We are about going to the third use cases.
pricing.
Okay, the third use case. So no,
Yeah.
I stopped at the second use case. So what I was just
Yes.
trying to explain
Oh,
is
you have not.
that okay, I've not gotten to the second use case. Hello? Hello? Okay. So let me
Yeah,
just let
we're
me
still talking about solution architect. We're still talking about solution architect. When you...
okay. Let's say for instance you're a solution architect and you want to give a customer comes to you because part of the work of a solution architect is to propose solutions to customers by their business needs. Maybe your customer tell you, I have issues hosting my application in my on-premise environment because sometimes we have power issue. Sometimes we have issues scaling our servers because of the cost of hardware and because of the cost of getting skilled personnel that will actually handle the hardware cost. And as at that, as a solution architect now, you now want to like propose a solution that the customer will use in Microsoft Azure. Maybe you now tell the customer that okay, you will set up some virtual machines in Azure to host your servers, and you are now giving the customer the advantage of having his servers in the cloud. If you have your servers in the cloud, all those hardware costs, you won't be responsible for all that. You won't be responsible for maintenance, and you won't be responsible for power, which the customer is already telling you that is having issues with power. If you are proposing that solution to the customer, which is virtual machines in Azure, that means the customer will want to know the price that is going to spend if he wants to use that particular service. And in that case, you need to actually give the customer an estimate of what the customer will spend. And if you want to give the customer an estimate of what the customer will spend, the tool you need to use is Azure Pricing Calculator. So that was why I gave these use cases. Plan your budget. This is the why. You use Azure Pricing Calculator to estimate the monthly cost. The Youth Alive Fellowship want to deploy a web app in Azure, but before they deploy it, they want to know the costs. So with Azure Pricing Calculator, it can estimate the amount you are going to spend in hosting a web app in Azure. Why another use case is a solution architect need to give a code to a customer and the customer want to host their network and servers in Azure. Why? Azure Pricing Calculator helps you generate a clear estimate of what the customer will spend. So this is just the two use cases that we put up here. So for you to use Azure Pricing Calculator, you don't need to have Azure subscription to use Azure Pricing Calculator. It's actually free. So if you want to go to Azure Pricing Calculator, you can just type Azure Pricing Calculator, then hit enter. So you can follow me while I do the demonstrations. Once you type Azure Pricing Calculator, the first particular site you see, just click on it, Azure Pricing Calculator. So it takes you to the Azure Pricing Calculator page. We can see here, Pricing Calculator calculates your estimated hourly or monthly cost for using Azure. So if you want to use any Azure services, you need to use Azure Pricing Calculator. So once you log into Azure Pricing Calculator, you are going to see popular. So this popular here is more or less like telling you the popular services that customers use. Part of the popular services are virtual machine, storage account, Azure SQL database, Azure Kubernetes service, Azure Cosmos DB, app service, Azure functions, Azure AI service, and Microsoft cost management. So these are the popular services that customers really use. So if you look at the Microsoft Cost Management now, it helps you monitor and allocate and optimize cloud cost and transparency, accuracy, and efficiency. So now we are going to look at this use case that we have here. We are going to use Azure Pricing Calculator to solve the problem. So let's come back to our board. So here now, we want to estimate how much it will cost us to deploy a web app in Azure. So what we'll just do is, from the popular services here, we can see that we have app services, but if you still come down to all these options here, if you click on compute now, it will now tailor you down to all Microsoft compute solutions, where we have virtual machines case sets, Azure Kubernetes services, Azure Service Fabrics, Bash, Azure Virtual Desktop, Azure Dedicated Host, and Azure Springs apps. If you go to networking now, it will show you the Azure networking solutions that we have. We have virtual network, we have Azure Virtual Network Manager, we have load balancer, we have application gateway, we have VPN gateway, we have Azure DNS that you can use to host your domain name system in Azure. We have traffic manager, we have Azure private 5G core, we have IP address, we have Azure Bastion, and also we have Azure front door, and we have Azure Network, Azure NAT Gateway, and we have Azure Storage Actions. So if you still drill down to storage, you are going to see Azure Storage Solutions. Storage Account is a storage solution. Azure Data Bus is a storage solution. Managed Disk is a storage solution. If you go to web now, in our own case, Pastor Steve wants to know how much he's going to spend to host a website in Microsoft Azure. So the services, part of the service you can use to host a website is app service. You can use app service to host a website in Microsoft Azure. We can see here, quickly create powerful cloud apps for web and mobile. So if you were not on our class when we talked about app service, I will urge you to go back to our recording and watch it. So these are Microsoft web solutions. We can see Azure Signal Services, Azure Web App. We can see mobile. For mobile now, we have app service. You can use app service to host mobile applications for Azure Communication Services, remote rendering. Then if you come to containers now, you will see Microsoft Container, Azure Container Solutions, which some of them here are Azure Kubernetes Service. So with pricing calculator, you can just use it to estimate the cost of what your customer is asking for. As a solution architect now, once you already know that, maybe for instance, Pastor Steve now wants to deploy a web app in Microsoft Azure. So you come to web here and he wants to know the amount he's going to spend. So firstly, if you come to your pricing calculator, you can sign in. If you look at the top here, if you click on sign in, it will automatically sign you in. So the advantage of signing in is that it helps you to you can save your cost. So if you click on login here now, so it will pick your account. So I want us to log in so that any estimate we do, we can always save it. So once you log in, you can see that your name will show here that you are logged in. So now I want to calculate what it will cost us to host a web app, what it will cost Youth Alive Fellowship to host a web app in Microsoft Azure. So firstly, I will just come to web, then from web, I'll click on app service. So once I click on app service, it will tell me app service has been added. So I'll just scroll down. So it will tell me. So Pastor Steve now wants us to host our website in Microsoft Azure. So firstly, I'll check the region. So part of the region, you can select any region that is close to you. So region impacts cost also. So South Africa is here, but most times I prefer creating my resources in West Europe. So I'll just select West Europe. Where is Europe? Okay, West Europe. Then You know, most times applications run on several operating systems. There are some applications that run on Windows, that run on Linux. So if your application is running on Linux, maybe for instance now, as a solution architect, these are the questions you ask the people that are handling the application infrastructure. You ask them, this application, are you hosting it on a Windows server or on a Linux server? So if they tell you that they're hosting the application on a Linux, you select Linux. If they tell you that they're hosting the application on a Windows, on a Windows server, you select Windows server. So we'll just select Windows operating system. So for the tier, you can select any of the tier here. If for instance, you want to select maybe standard tier, you can select it. So if we notice something here, for standard tier, it gives you one core, 175 gig, and it gives you 50 gig of storage. So the tier you select determines the functionality you get. So you can see here now that it gives you 730 hours Windows OS operating system. So from here you can do those calculations. So if you select standard now, for the instance, you can increase the instance. You can decide to select 4 cores depending on how dogged and how rugged you want the application to work. Maybe Pastor Steve tells you that, I don't want us to manage you. I want us to spend. I don't want us to manage cost. Okay, you can now go for 4 cores so that the application will be very fast. So you can see when we increase it to 4, the price increased to $292. So if I reduce it to 2 cores now, it will reduce. So these are the things you tell your customer, or from your interaction with the customer, you will know what they want. So if you don't want to use standard, maybe you want to use free, it means it's free. So Microsoft gives you free options to host your web app in Microsoft Azure. There's a free option here, but the free option only gives you 1 gig RAM and 1 gig storage, which is very small. You can't really use it for for hosting a production website. So free is out of it. So we can select, maybe we can do basic, since it's just youth alive, it's not a website that everybody will be accessing. So you can select a more higher tier here. Then now, how many instance of this web app do you want to create? Maybe for instance, Pastor Steve said, we want to host 2 web app. One will be for YAF, while one will be for YAF FT, while the other one will be for YAF Global. So you can just come here and increase it to 2. So if you increase it to 2, the price will now double by 2. So from here now, you can now go and meet Pastor Steve and you can just click on save. So once you click on save, the estimate will save. So you can give it a name. Let's say YAF Web App Estimate. So let me change this. Estimate. So it will be YAF Web App Estimate. So you save it. So once you save it like this, after saving it, you have saved it automatically. So it will show under your saved estimate at the top. But the major focus is you want to export it. So let me come back to my browser. So you want to actually export it. So now that you have saved it, so the major goal here is that we want to host a web app in Azure and want to calculate the price it will cost us to host a web app. And you are hosting 2 web apps, 2 instances of a web app. So if you are hosting 2, that means this is what you spend monthly if you are using basic tier. But if you are using any other tiers, the prices will differ. If I select premium V2 now, the prices will go up. So you'll be able to select more options. You can see if I select 4, you see to host 2 instances, $1,168. So you can see the cost here. So with pricing calculator, it helps you estimate the amount you spend if you are if you want to host any service in Microsoft Azure. So here now, since we are done, if you collapse other options here, if you want to add maybe all these settings, you can add it. And if, for instance, they have a custom domain name, or you want to create a custom domain name for YAF Global, so you can say, okay, you want to add 2 domains. So the more you add services here, the more the cost. If you want to use wildcard SSL certificate, So if you select it for the two websites, want to use wildcard SSL certificate, you can see that the price is going up per year. But all these ones you are charged per year. But this one here is per month. So those are the things you just need to know. So here now, your monthly cost for web app is $292. So all these prices is very important. We know the like the we know like how to use them, because if you go and give a customer a wrong price, at the end of the day, you'll be the one that will pay. You'll be the one that will pay for the loss, or maybe the organization will get the loss. So this is how you can use Azure Pricing Calculator. You can use it to calculate, you can use it to estimate, but before you add anything on the portal, you must first of all know the customer requirements. This customer now, they want to create two web app. If for instance, they want to create one, if I reduce this to one now, the price will drop. We can see now the price has dropped. So all these ones, if I reduce this to one, if I reduce it to one, the price will also drop. If I reduce this one to one, the price will also drop. So we can see now that the price is now $146. So the monthly cost is $146. Upfront cost is $311.98. So monthly, this is what you'll be paying monthly. Upfront, this is what you need to pay, because you have some subscriptions here that are yearly. Like this yearly now is more or less like you are paying one time for 1 year. After this year, you'll be charged again. This one for 1 year, you're using a wildcard SSL certificate for your domain. Microsoft will bill you. So that's it. So after doing the calculation like this now, you can now click on export so that you can export it and download it. So once you click on export, it will download. So if you want to give Pastor Steve this particular report now, you can just open your system where you have it downloaded. Then you open it. So once you open it, it will now show you, the cost. So let's say, okay, so let me close this guy. So let me open it again. So can't open. So basically, you can always export. Once you export, you will be able to open the app. So let me just close Excel application. Let me close all the tabs I have open on my Excel. Let me close them to close Excel. Let me just search for it here. Excel. So that's how to use pricing calculator to get estimates. So I'll open that. I'll open it. We'll be able to have access to what we just created. So let me try opening it again. Where is my downloads? Come to downloads here, then estimates. Okay, so we have it open here. So now, do you want to know? I don't want to view them. So we have our price here. So you can see Microsoft Azure estimates. So this is what Microsoft is telling you, that the service category here is compute. Service type is app services. Customer name is not here. So the customer name here now will be YAF. Because Youth Alive Fellowship are the ones that want to use the web app. So you can put it YAF as the customer name. We selected West Europe. You can see the way Microsoft calculated the price for you. They calculated everything you will spend. Pricing calculator helped you. So if you send this to a customer now, the customer will now look at it. Okay, we are using premium V2 tier. We are using one P1 V2, 33.5 gig RAM, 250 gig storage. It's going to stay for 730 hours. Windows is using Windows OS, and it's going to have one custom domain name. It's going to have one SSL certificate. The customer will now say, okay, this is what I'm spending. This is what I'm going to pay. Then this is the monthly cost. Then the upfront cost now is more or less like addition of those yearly costs, because we have some things that you pay yearly. So if we come back to the Azure portal now, So on the Azure portal now, we have two add-ons here. Like this custom domain, you are going to pay $11.99 per year. This one, you are going to pay 200 and 200 and $299.99 per year. That's what you are going to pay. So if you add 299 plus 11.99, then plus this amount, that this 146 is going to give you the upfront cost of $311.98. So as a solution architect or an Azure person, you are going to know how to use Azure Pricing Calculator very well, because you will be working with the sales team to come up with prices and what the customer will spend. Cost is very important too, because if you don't give the right cost, there are going to be issues. So we have treated the first use case, which is use case of using Azure Pricing Calculator, that you can use it to estimate the monthly cost of what we are going to spend if we want to use we deploy a web app in Azure. So now if you are the person that reports to Pastor Steve, you can just go and tell him, if we want to deploy a web app in Azure, we are going to spend 300, we are going to make an upfront payment of $311.98. If he now asks you, okay, what is the value in Naira? So you can just go to Google, convert dollar to Naira. So you are going to see how much is the cost. So but this Naira is, I think this is for this is an old time, because dollar now is not 780, but let's say it's even 780. So if we come here now and we just copy the amount here, let's say we are going to be spending $318, and we come here and we paste it here. You can just tell him, this is the amount you are going to spend upfront, 243,344. So he will now send this budget to those in charge to release the funds, to disburse it. So you can use Azure Pricing Calculator to estimate the amount you are going to spend if you want to use a service in Microsoft Azure. So let's look at the second scenario. So the second scenario here is that you are a solution architect. A customer told you that they want to host their network and servers in Azure. So if a customer wants to host their network and servers in Azure, so I'm going to clear this particular page. So I'm just going to save. I'll click on save. So I'm going to save it. So but I can do save as, let me just say YAF, YAF web app estimates, and save. So once I save it, the advantage of saving is that you can always go back and check. So if I close this page now, I say yes, delete. So now there won't be any estimate here. But if I come up and say save the estimate, I'm going to see it here. This is it. YAF web app estimate, YAF web app estimate. So if I click on open, I can always open it. I can always load it. So estimate has been added. So if I come down, I'm going to see it here. Again, that is the advantage of logging in. Once you log in, you'll be able to save your estimate and look at it again next time when you want to see it. So I'll just come here and remove it again, so that we are going to do another calculation entirely for customer that want to host web servers, and they want to host their network. So any customer now that want to host web servers and they want to host their network in Microsoft Azure, what it means is that the customer wants to use Microsoft infrastructure as a service. So with Microsoft infrastructure as a service, Microsoft will give you servers. They will rent servers that you can use, because the pain point of the customer is that sometimes I spend more doing maintenance. I spend more on power. We all know that most of these companies, they're on band A, and they spend a lot of money buying units for their servers, because those servers, they consume a lot of power. They consume a lot of power. Like you can even buy a unit of, let's say, 20,000. Within 2 hours is gone. So imagine you maybe you only have one server that is consuming that amount. What if you now have 10 in your environment, meaning that a day you are spending close to 200K or 300K just on power. Maybe the customer calculates that he's spending like, let's say 5 million and he's tired. Like, for what? Why would I be spending 5 million on power when I can just find out how much it will cost me to host my servers in Azure? So now the customer pain points and what the customer wants is that they want you to give them the cost. They want you to give them the cost of what they will spend to host their network and servers in Azure. So now you will generate a clear estimate of what the customer will spend. So that's what you want to do now. So here now, since the customer wants to host servers, then you come to compute, because in compute, that is where you are going to see virtual machines. So if I open virtual machines now, it's going to add virtual machine, and the customer also say they want to host their network in Azure. So I'll select virtual network. So, and the customer also say maybe they want their users to communicate to Azure. That means that means they are going to be needing other solutions like VPN gateway. They will need virtual network gateway, because if they want their users to be able to authenticate to servers in Azure, they will need VPN gateway. So as a solution architect, you are the one that will now define the solutions that the customer will need. So you just come down. We added virtual machines first, then we added virtual network, then we added VPN gateway. So we are going to be calculating all this so that we can give the customer the cost that the customer will spend. Let's start with virtual machines. So first thing, if you are creating a virtual machine, the first thing you consider is the region. So if we are using West Europe, let's go to West Europe, yeah, West Europe. So it will load West Europe. So West Europe has been selected. So now the operating system, we have two major operating system, Windows or Linux. So let's say the customer is using Windows operating system majorly. So for the OS type, we have different OS. So you can select SQL Server, you can select BStock or OS only. So OS doesn't really matter. If you're using Windows Server, you are using Windows 10, you are using any of them, they are all the same. OS is more or less like the operating system that we run. So Microsoft will not charge you $100 if you want to run Windows Server 2022. It's the same price that they will charge you to run Windows 10, that they will charge you to run Windows 11. So we'll just say OS only. So for tier, you can either select basic or standard. If you followed us on our class when we were creating virtual machine, you will see where we selected the tier. So we are selecting basic here. So if we select basic now, that means we can click on categories. So for categories here, you can select general purpose virtual machines. So for instance series, so if you say all series, that means you have the options to select any series that you want. So if we come down now, we have the amount the customer will be spending per hour. If he uses 7 gig RAM, maybe the customer now tells you that the servers I have on-prem, the minimum the minimum RAM of the server is, let's say, 16 gig. So you can just say, how much will this customer spend now? How much will I be billing this customer? And also, you can also change this general purpose. You can put it in all so that you have the opportunity to select to see all the options here. So you can pick any of the options that you want here. So let's select 7 gig RAM, for example. Maybe the customer wants to, most of the servers, the customer has a 4 cores and 7 gig RAM. So if we select 7 gig RAM here, the virtual machines now are the servers that the customer have locally. Let's say we want to use like, maybe they have like four VMs in their environment. So we'll just select four there. So from there, we can see other options. We have options that could even reduce cost for you. So if you're using pay as you go, it means that you have to have the subscription, like the money will be there. So subscription is more or less like adding your credit card and paying for like adding money to your Azure environment. So once there's money there, maybe you have like $10,000. So the money, as you are using the resources, Microsoft will be billing you per hour. As the money is consuming, Microsoft will be billing you. But if you want to use saving plans, you can use saving plans also to save you for some cost. So we can see saving plan here. You can save money across across select compute services globally by committing to spend a fixed hourly amount for 1 or 3 years. So if you are using saving plan, you can either select 1 year or 3 years, meaning that you want to pay for these resources for a minimum of that period of time. So you must be in the business. So this one is more or less like they are giving you options for long time. So if you look at reservation now, reservation reduce cost on selected Azure services by forecasting your resources need and paying for them in advance. So if you are paying in advance, you get a subsidized price. But pay as you go. If the customer wants to use pay as you go, this is what the customer is going to spend for 4 virtual machines in 1 month. So this is average per month. This is what the customer will be paying per month. So if you come down to manage disks, all these are add-ons that you can add. Let's say, for instance, the customer tells you that I want to add additional disks. I want to add additional disks to each of the servers. So you can tell the customer, will it be standard HDD or standard SSD? So once you select it, you can now select the particular size. So we have 1 TB here. So we have 1 TB, we have 512 gig. So maybe the customer tells you, I want 1 TB. So the price for 1 TB is $40 per month. And you want to add 4 because you're adding 4 servers. So you come down to storage, transactions. Then for certain transactions, you can leave it as default. Then you come here. If you don't want to use all these options, you leave it. So for the customer now to host 4 virtual machines, this is what the customer is going to actually spend. This is the estimate of what the customer will spend for just the servers alone. Then for virtual network, you also select your region. So you can select West Europe, since that's the region we have been selecting. Then for the second VNet, you can also select West Europe. Where is Europe? Europe. Then these options now that we are selecting is the use cases when you want to do virtual network pairing. So what virtual network pairing means is like when you want to pair two network together. So you can use virtual network pairing so that resources on the other VNet can communicate with resources on the other virtual network. So that's just the advantage of virtual network pairing. So now we are done with the virtual network. So we have seen the monthly cost for virtual network. So at the end of the day, we'll now view the total cost that the customer is going to spend. So when we come down now to virtual network gateway, you select West Europe again. So you come down to West Europe. You can be doing it as I'm doing it because you can just be calculating it. So we have two options. Either you want to use VPN gateway or express route. So all these ones are advanced concept. So we'll just use VPN gateway. So for the VPN type, you can select each of the options. So each of these options you are selecting determine the total number of people that can connect to the virtual network gateway to the site to site using the site to site VPN. Let's say, for instance, now you want to select maybe VPN version 1. Then you come down the additional site to site tunnel. You can see 1 or you can just see 1. Then for virtual network gateway type, you can select VPN. So you now say, okay, maybe you want to use 5 gig. So at the end of the day, you estimate the cost will be estimated. So for VPN gateway, so gateway per hour, let's say you want to you want to use, maybe you want it to be for the gateway hours. Let's calculate it. Let me calculate it per 1 year. Let's say 24 times 30. Okay. Let's say 720 hours. 720 hours. So if you're using 720 hours, this is what you'll be spending. So for tunnel, now we are using 1 tunnel here. So if you're using point to site VPN now, so because for your client to be able to connect to this particular virtual network gateway, they need point to site VPN setup. Let's say you can just add, like, let's do 20, or let's do 50, depending on the numbers of, let's do 50. So as a solution architect now, you'll be the one that will decide, that will calculate all this. Then if we come now, only the cost for virtual network gateway, the customer will be spending 507, because VPN enables you to like create connections between your local network and your network in the cloud. That's site-to-site VPN. Then for your client to be able to connect to the network in the cloud, they need point-to-site VPN. So that's just the way it is. So now this is the estimated cost that the customer will spend if the customer wants to use Microsoft, if the customer wants to migrate their servers and their network to Microsoft Azure. That's if the customer wants to use Microsoft Azure. This is what the customer will spend. So the customer will now sit down now and calculate, how much am I spending per month? Am I spending up to 1.8 million per month? If the customer now see that he's spending like 6 million per month, that means Microsoft Azure will actually be the best, because now what you will spend here is just $1,621. So that's just it. So pricing calculator now has helped you estimate the amount the customer will spend. So all these things, most times, for you to get the values you input here, it's from your conversation with the customer. That's what will determine the value you are going to put. So it's your conversation with the customer that really matters. So if your customer tells you that, okay, we want you to use, depends on the capacity. Maybe for instance now, as it is here, it was in basic. So if you are using basic, you have less functionality. So maybe the customer just wants something basic. That means this is what the customer will be spending per month. But if the customer wants maybe a virtual machine with high capacity, then you need to change the tier to standard so that you can be able to select more sizes. So that's just how it is for Azure Pricing Calculator. So just like we did the other time, you can decide to save as, then you call it Azure Estimate. Let's say estimate for compute. So you click on save. So you have saved it now. So this alone is a job. Managing costs, how to calculate costs in Microsoft Azure. So if you're a salesperson, then pricing, if you are a salesperson and you're working for a company that is a partner, Microsoft partner, then this can even make them employ you if you know how to use pricing calculator very well to help them calculate costs for their customers and all. Yeah. So that's pricing calculator. So does anybody have any question before we go? Yeah, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.